if they didn't freaking. I
What's
was
up,
about
my
to.
family? Listen, first-time listener, or you've been here the whole damn time. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, giddy up, let's go, no notes.
That's my baby. I'm dying. That's my baby.
We're going at it at 110%.
I just want 5 minutes of happiness, please. Just give me 5 minutes.
And they scored! They did it!
Slap.
What the hell was that?
Oh, yeah!
What the f*** are you talking about?
All right, welcome in, everybody. We are the Sports Hounds. Brad Ryer, Doug Mankiewicz. I'm Rob Brinkman. Each and every Monday, live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Periscope, Instagram. Stream us wherever you get your podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, Google Play, iHeartRadio, and iTunes. Each and every Monday, we are brought to you by Baggio's Breads, located in Mount Laurel, New Jersey. Home of the best stuffed breads, tomato pies, sandwiches, cutlets, and meatballs. Mention A2D Radio. 10% off your in-store purchase. Remember, Baggio's Breads, Mount Laurel, New Jersey, now open from 9 to 3 on Sundays. Get your eats for your party for the Niners game. Another big one coming up in Philadelphia next Sunday at the Link. Niners coming back to town, looking for revenge because they got cheated in last year's NFC Championship game. Oh, we're talking football. A lot of football tonight. We're going to talk about the NFL. We are going to talk the college football playoff, which is looming. Things are going to get very interesting, as we were just discussing backstage with some of these conference championship games. And it's the quarter point of the NHL, so we're going to give Brad the floor towards the end of the show to give us his thoughts on the NHL, Flyers, Rangers, Eastern Conference, Western Conference. Then you can check out the complete quarter point Hockey Happy Hour show tomorrow at 8:30, Brad?
No, actually it's 8 o'clock now.
8 o'clock now. There you go. As always, hit that like, hit that subscribe, turn those notifications on. Don't miss a damn thing here from A2D Radio. Hockey, football, basketball, don't matter. We got you covered. Poll question of the night, a thriller in South Philly yesterday. Eagles squeak out yet another win in overtime. So our poll question tonight, the Eagles will be the number one seed in the NFC. I think ultimately they're going to be. I really like, first off, I just looked at the line for next week. The Eagles are 10-1. They're at home, and they're opening as a 2.5-point underdog against the San Francisco 49ers. You want to talk about disrespect? You don't think that locker room is going to catch wind of that? You don't think Nick Sirianni is going to catch wind of that? So I got them beating the Niners. I'm not scared of the Lions. I'm not scared of the Cowboys. Seattle's not that great. The Rams, maybe they're going to sneak in. I don't know with Matthew Stafford. The Vikings are playing right now on Monday Night Football against the Bears and Justin Fields. So, I mean, they're going to be the number. I mean, honestly, after yesterday and that win over the Bills, I would be utterly shocked if the Eagles weren't representing the NFC.
I said if they make this kick, the 60-yarder in the whatever you want to call that weather, I was like, I said it out loud. I said it to my son. I go, if they make
it was nasty yesterday.
I go, if they make this kick, they're winning the Super Bowl. I said they're winning the Super Bowl.
I love it.
I look at my son and he goes, what? I go, if they make this kick after looking the way they looked and still can tie this and then they're going to win it, I go, they're winning the Super Bowl. I go, just like divine intervention. It's like how I mean, you can play so bad and still win. At home, road doesn't matter. They're the number one seed. Period. I still feel like they're going to lose maybe one or two more games down the road, maybe two. Maybe at the end of the year when they've already clinched the number one seed, they rest guys. And
they're going to be playing the Giants, so it won't matter.
So you know what I mean. So it's like to go 16-1 is almost unheard of. So I'll give you 15-2. I don't see them losing more than one more game the rest of the year, and when they have their full squad out there.
Brad?
Well, I think they were very fortunate, and again, getting ridiculous calls from these referees. I don't know where these referees are making some of these calls. That intentional grounding on Allen. I mean, come on, he's getting horse tackled, and they call intentional grounding. I mean, another ridiculous call.
The ball didn't reach the textbook intentional grounding.
He was
With the
getting
refs, it's just
tackled,
nauseating.
Rob. He was getting.
You can't throw the ball to avoid a sack.
He
If
wasn't
you are
throwing
going
the
to
ball
do
to
that,
avoid the sack. He was throwing the ball and he got hit while he was throwing the ball.
that's not true. He's getting
getting
hog-tied
hit
to the
while he was
ground, and he
throwing the
threw the
ball.
ball about 6 inches, well short of the line of scrimmage.
Okay,
How
he
is
was
that not
trying-
intentional grounding?
He was
Do you
trying
know
to
the
throw the
rules
ball.
of
That
football?
is not intentional grounding.
It is. It's
No, it's
textbook
not.
intentional grounding.
No,
Yes,
it's
is.
not intentional grounding unless you are purposely throwing the ball away. He was trying to throw a pass. Okay, that is not. First of all, how's it not a horse collar? Okay, explain how that's not a horse collar.
Why do you do this with the refs every week and just sound
Because
like
the
a huge
refs
loser?
are handing.
If you want to
Eagles
see
games.
bad refereeing,
It is unbelievable.
I
Some
promise
of the
you.
calls. There was one pass interference play that was so ridiculous. Even Romo had something to say about it. I think it was
Romo.
it was in the what was it in the second quarter? I can't remember who it was, but there was a pass down the middle where the guy got hit like 3 seconds before the ball was there, and there's no call. I mean, it's just every game the Eagles get this horse shit. And how do you not call a horse collar on a guy? His jersey was ripped from the horse collar, and you're going to tell me that's not a horse collar? Come on,
If his
Rob.
jersey was ripped, then it's not a horse collar.
His jersey was ripped up here because it was getting pulled.
That's not a horse collar.
But he had him from behind his neck too.
He
But
had
here's
him
what,
behind his
okay.
neck.
You guys don't watch.
Are you going to tell me that's not a horse?
You
Tell me
guys
that's not a
didn't
horse
watch.
collar.
You guys
was
didn't
there
watch.
was there a flag?
Huh?
No.
See, you guys didn't watch.
Yeah, they called it. Yeah, they called it intentional grounding.
If you want to see, take the worst call you thought of yesterday that you saw in the game, and I know you didn't see it, but I'm not saying it because I'm a Florida State fan. Look at the unnecessary roughness call we got called on. It was 3rd and 10. Florida didn't score a touchdown. They played 10 plays inside the 10. We blitzed a safety. He tackled him. They gave him an unnecessary roughness because he hit him too hard. Like, honestly, you guys didn't see it, but, like, Google it, look at it on YouTube, and you tell me if it's not. I'll put it up against any other call in the history of sports that was any worse than that. It was that bad.
I can believe you after seeing the stuff.
It was horrendous.
It's really getting ridiculous. I mean, I think that they've got to have instant replay on some of the. They have to have replays on some of these penalties because or non-calls because it's getting to a point where the referees just make calls without really seeing the play and they get away with it because nobody can challenge it.
There were a couple this weekend in the college game too. I mean, I think Alabama kicked off to Auburn, and Auburn on the kickoff, the guy literally grabbed them by the face mask and pulled his helmet almost completely around. And they gave the guy threw the flag on the block in the back. And the guy's helmet was turned sideways. It's so bad. It's like, and I hate doing it to officials, but like literally the one I'm talking about in the Florida State game was in the first quarter. It was the first or second drive that they scored. It was absolutely the guy was standing literally 3 feet from it. And like, I think they didn't give what's bad? They didn't give a number. They're like unnecessary roughness on Florida State first down. And you're like,
yeah,
okay.
You got to give a number. You got to give a number. Total violation. Yeah.
It was. I'm just telling you. Google it, YouTube it, whatever you got to do, and just think of me watching this game like I'm about to rip my TV off the wall.
So, Brad, do you have any interest in answering the poll question, or you just want to bitch about the refs?
Oh, they'll be number 1 seed because the officials will make sure that they get all the calls like they did again yesterday.
When has Philadelphia ever gotten the benefit of the doubt when it comes
all season? Every week they're getting.
You're ridiculous. Okay.
I mean, this is the new Tom Brady and the new Dallas Cowboys or the Eagles now. Every week the referees sit there and they make some of the most ridiculous calls and they make sure that they're in incredibly difficult situations. Come on, Rob, tell me that wasn't a horse collar. I mean, seriously, tell me that wasn't a horse collar. He pulled his jersey
at worst. Okay,
No.
so let's say you're right. It is a horse collar. It's still in textbook intentional grounding. You can't throw the ball
the play
6 inches
doesn't
in front
count.
of you.
Then the play doesn't count.
Then it's offsetting. So that's
right.
That's,
so they
that's
do the play over. They don't lose the down.
And you know what? The Eagles would have kicked their ass again on the next play because the best
I
goddamn
doubt that.
team
I
in the
doubt that.
NFL.
The Eagles look
Buffalo
terrible.
screws
You know what?
everything
How
up.
do you
How are
think-
they 6 and
how do
6
you
with all
think-
that talent?
How do you think the Eagles end up getting all these calls? It's amazing. Every week,
Yeah.
it's the same thing. You know, and you know what? Their luck is going to run out because they've been getting a little too lucky, a little too long. You know, Valdez-Scantling dropping an easy touchdown pass with the Chiefs. You know, having to play games in the rain against teams that are faster than them. It's just these are the kind of breaks that they've been getting.
Bills aren't faster.
It's not going to happen
Eagles.
that way in the
Bills aren't
playoffs,
faster
Rob.
than the Eagles. The Bills aren't more athletic than the Eagles. The
I
Eagles have a
I
far
would disagree.
superior offense than the Buffalo Bills.
Keep
Far
telling me how
superior.
great
The
Jalen
Bills
Hurts
aren't
is.
good. I've been
Jalen
telling
Hurts,
all
I can
airwaves.
throw a ball just as far as Jalen Hurts.
You're
freaking
out of your
stinks.
mind. Are you stoned?
Jalen Hurts is the most overrated quarterback in the history of the NFL. Okay,
That's
Josh Allen.
completely
You
false.
can
That's the
watch
most
Josh
ridiculous
Allen and watch
statement
Jalen
ever.
Hurts. You could see how much better Josh Allen is as a quarterback than Jalen
Well,
Hurts.
Josh Allen turns the ball over like a leaky faucet.
And how many
every
interceptions
week.
has Jalen
Every
Hurts had
week.
this year? He's had what, 10?
He didn't do good with that in that statistic in the beginning of the year, but he's been phenomenal the past couple of weeks.
He's got like 10 interceptions now.
Josh Allen leads the league in interceptions. Not to mention,
Okay,
his
but Josh
fumbles.
Allen tries to squeeze the ball in because he's got such a great arm. Jalen Hurts, half the time, his interceptions come because
That's
he
great.
can't reach
He's
the
got a
damn
great
receivers.
arm throwing it to Kelly Green and the Miami Dolphins, and that's great. You're really going to compare Jalen Hurts? I mean, Josh Allen. If you were to come out and say Josh Allen is the most overrated quarterback in NFL history, that would have much more merit.
No,
than
Jalen Hurts is the most over for Eagle fans to sit there and compare him to Patrick Mahomes. It just
That's a little ridiculous.
That's proves how stupid Eagle fans can be sometimes.
But
I mean, that's
Giants
ridiculous.
fans, New York fans, they never have
Just
bad takes,
ridiculous.
and I've never said anything of the sort. Patrick Mahomes is the best
I
quarterback
see
in
it.
the league.
I see it on Facebook all
The
the
way-
time.
Oh, on
Howard is
the best
Facebook,
quarterback in the
there's
NFL.
a
Yeah, right.
fucking
You know who's gonna be-
encyclopedia
you know who's gonna end up-
great
you know what the
intelligent
joke
knowledge
is?
right there.
The
Your fucking Facebook
the
wall.
MVP is going to be Dak
Dude.
Prescott, and then you guys are going to be crying your eyes out. You watch.
Who cares about an MVP?
I mean,
telling
I
you.
lost all respect for the MVP award when Carson Wentz didn't win in 2017.
Oh,
Lies
I don't
about it.
care. I don't care about it. I don't care what
Oh.
anybody says. I don't care how his career progressed. Carson Wentz was the best player in the NFL in 2017. He didn't win the MVP award. The MVP award is a sham. I don't care about the MVP. Don't care. Who cares about it? Dak Prescott can have all the MVPs, all the passing leaders, all the fantasy football stats he wants. He's never, ever, ever going to win a big game in his life because he stinks.
Well,
He
neither have the
absolutely
Eagles.
Maybe,
stinks.
but he's got a hell of
He's
a lot
neither-
better
neither
Neither
numbers
has
this
this
year
Eagle
than
team either, though.
he's got a lot better numbers this year than Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts' numbers are not
Stats
very
are for
good.
losers. Stats are for losers.
The way
Okay.
I analyze
Losers.
it, when you guys are done squibbling,
Go
if
ahead.
the way I look at it, always take this. If you took your quarterback and put them on the other team and flopped with the same weapons, how would it look?
Oh, the Bills would have a much better record.
The Bill-
yeah.
if
Oh.
Josh Allen was on the Eagles,
Yeah,
the
you'd
Eagles
have
would never lose a
45
game.
minutes to throw a ball.
the
That's
way
all I'm
Josh
saying.
Allen can throw a ball and the way
I
he
would
can
take
run-
Josh Allen yesterday on the Dolphins over Tua.
Oh, that's Tua. Now you're changing the. I mean,
Tua's a better, the same thing as Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts can run a little faster, and he's more durable. I'll give you that. I wouldn't say I wouldn't say again, you take Tua. Tua's in the perfect system. If he's not in this system,
If you put
he's
him on the
exposed-
Giants, so
he's
he'd be
exposed.
dead
Oh,
by now.
he's being a body bag.
He'd be
that's
dead by now.
if you put Tua on the Bills, he's a turnover machine. You put Josh Allen on this team, on the Dolphins team, holy moly. And add the fact that he can run to it too. That's the thing that blows me
Yeah,
away.
Tyreek Hill, he'd be throwing 80-yard touchdown passes to Tyreek Hill every
But
week.
even if he didn't, I mean, like, think of, like, if, God forbid, they played man-to-man, Josh Allen could have rushed for 100 yards a game. He'd be a poor man's version of Lamar Jackson who can throw better. I mean, that's the scary part. Tua won't run. Tua, if his first read isn't there, it's straight panic mode. But that's getting off topic. But, like, that's the way I look at it. I always look at it like, okay, like, if you took X off that team and put him on this team, how would they compare? But it's hard to do. I get it, because now more than ever in the NFL, I think finally teams have decided to bring in a system for the person they draft. For how many years did you see, like, they draft the best quarterback, right? The best skilled quarterback. And then they, like, trying to put a round peg into a square hole. He's got to do it on this. He's got to be in this system. He's got to be a drop back. And then all of a sudden, I mean, hell, it might have been 10, 12 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, they started bringing in, like, remember how you can't run, you can't have a quarterback that runs. We want pocket presence and all this stuff. And then all of a sudden, you started getting more and more mobile guys, right, come in. And then, like, now they're starting to, like, you never saw the read option in the NFL, right?
No.
Never.
No.
And now you're starting to see it. Whereas, like, finally, say whatever you want, but, like, there's, like, more systems and more system QBs now than there's ever been. Like, they're not trying to force, like I said, they're not trying to force a round peg into a square hole anymore. Like you do, you know, like Jalen Hurts, they built the perfect. It's almost like he's Carson Wentz, but better in this system. You know what I'm saying? Like the best year he had, because he can run it, he can throw it. He's
smarter than Carson Wentz.
They don't have. He doesn't have to do. He doesn't have to. They don't say, "Here, Jalen, go ahead and win the game from the start, from the first drive on." Right? Like he's progressed from the guy I feel like watching was like, just don't screw it up. Now they use him as a weapon, as they should. Whereas you look at Josh Allen in the regards of, to me, the Bills' problem is they've wanted the gunslinger, and now they can't rein him in because he had success early. He was winning games by himself, literally, like slinging it all over the place. Well, now it's backfiring on him, and now they're like, it's like you can't have it both ways. You know, it's like you can't tell the guy to be the gunslinger and then complain about it when he throws a pick, because that's exactly what makes him good. What makes him elite is the fact that he has the balls to throw it into a 3-inch window, and sometimes it works. It's like you can't wow him for it and then berate him because he threw a pick. So, you know, that's, you know, I think the Bills haven't had an offensive line in 3 years. They refuse to run the ball.
If they had the Eagles' offensive line,
I think everybody.
If you put Allen on the Eagles, Allen would throw for 5,000 yards.
He would pick people apart.
Yeah,
I mean, pick people apart. And that's not a negative against Jalen Hurts. It's just reality. Like Buffalo hasn't, like they just abandoned the running game 2 or 3 years ago. And like, here, Josh, go be Dan Marino of the 80s. And like you're watching Dan Marino 2.0, except he can run a little bit. It's exactly watching Dan every week.
The problem is, Doug, when you have situations where you need to run the ball, it's not there for Buffalo.
They make him do it. They literally make him do everything.
Yeah, and that's the problem with Buffalo right now. And I don't know if it's the coach or the general manager or the talent they bring in. They've got pretty good receivers. You know, they got one great receiver and a bunch of decent receivers.
I was I was starting to get really angry with the Eagles and Eagles fans and everything about Philly watching Buffalo. And I'm like, come on, people. Like, I speak highly of you. Like, we really need you to beat Buffalo because we can't do it. So we need all the help we can get. So I was very, 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 very thankful the outcome of yesterday's game. So thank you.
Buffalo got lucky because the Browns found a way to lose. You know, believe it or not, they're still in it, but their schedule is such that they're not good enough to be able to get away with the schedule that they've got and win. They're just not going to be able to do it. Not, at least not to me. I don't think they could do that.
Well, you have Niners this weekend, right?
Philly? The Eagles do, yes.
Oof.
Eagles, Dallas, at Seattle,
That's not.
And no, I'm not. No, Geno Smith. I mean, his coach turned into a pumpkin. I mean, he played his best football last year. He's just not that. He's just.
You ever heard
he
that
is what
song?
he is.
That
what he
song,
is.
Back to Life,
He's-
Back to
He's
Reality.
playing now. He's playing hurt.
Soul to Soul. Yeah, he
Two
is.
weeks
too.
ago, 2 weeks ago, he got popped in that. Was it when did they play the Rams? Was it 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, he got hurt in that game. I mean, he's playing with a bum shoulder, and it's pretty obvious that he's not the same.
He wasn't doing good before that. He wasn't playing as good as he did last year.
No, you're right. You're right. But the NFL's kind of adjusted to him. They kind of figured him out somewhat.
Good for him though. He had one good year and he got paid. Good for him.
And he got paid. Got paid.
Correct.
And then we get the Giants twice and the Cardinals.
Oh my gosh.
The Eagles do.
That's 3
bye
wins.
weeks.
So I'd
You
like
could
to
play
think they
Ron
would
Jaworski
be.
in that game and still have a chance to win.
I'd like to think they got 3. And
How many
by the way,
sacks are you going to get? How many sacks are you going to get against the Giants? They had 9 against the Redskins.
Danny DeVito's not going to be able to walk out of there after that. After whatever his name is, Tom DeVito, whatever his name is.
yeah.
Tommy DeVito.
I call him
DeVito,
Danny
he got
DeVito.
sacked. I think he got sacked 6 or 7 times yesterday. I mean,
That poor guy.
he took some shot. He made some nice passes though. He's finally, he runs around long enough so that he can find Jalen Hyatt. Now Jalen Hyatt's finally being a part of the offense. But I mean, their offensive line has just held them back this year completely. Yeah, it's just totally disabled any offense that they can muster up.
That's one thing I'm looking. That's one thing I've been impressed with, the fact that we're still playing with 4 backups, and we're holding our own. We held our own against the Jets. It wasn't great, but they can rush the passer. They have a defensive line that can hurt you, and back secondary that can pick the ball off. I was happy, content. We got our biggest game coming up is Christmas Eve. We got Dallas at home, and that's
going to be a tough game for them.
And that Bronco game is looking better and better for us right now. The fact they're 6-5, and that
Right. Yeah, they're on a tear.
I don't know how that happens. That they looked completely disinterested, and now all of a sudden you're telling me they're going to make the playoffs. That's just mind blowing.
I mean, you got to give credit where credit's due. He wasn't good that last year, and he didn't start good this year. But Russell Wilson has been really good.
You have to give. I mean, you still got to give him time with Sean Payton too. That's like, you might not. I think I lost a little bit of respect for Sean Payton through all that stuff that happened through this winter, with the talking bad about coaches and whatever. But
right,
you got to give credit where credit's due. That team looked about as discombobulated as you could possibly fathom down here in Miami when they got 70 points put on them.
Yeah,
70.
Yeah. How do you get 70 points put on you and now you're 6-5?
And then you shut down Kansas City, and it's just like, oh my gosh, like that's not the same squad we saw a month ago. So that's the crazy part of the NFL. Is just like you don't know what you're going to get week in and week out. It's just you have an idea, but that's what makes what the Eagles are doing to be 10-1 is, it's impressive. Like they haven't played their A game. What? You watch them closer than I do. I would say they play their A game, once, twice, at most, like all year, and they're still 10-1. I mean, have they? Have they played a game where you're like, damn, that was about as good as we can play?
I mean, they struggled to beat Washington. They struggled to beat the Patriots. They win though. You got to give them credit for that. They win every week. You gotta wonder. I mean, eventually they're going to have to play 60 minutes against some of these good teams. I don't know if it's going to happen now with the playoffs, but if they don't start playing,
what about Buffalo, man? Like they have the ability to play with and beat anybody in the NFL, and like they put points up in that slop yesterday. They gave them. I don't think Buffalo played their A game, but it was an A- game. It wasn't like that's. Buffalo can turn it on against certain, they still have weapons. They still can. They're still, they weren't that far off from a couple of years ago, or even last year. Everybody's being their Super Bowl pick. You take away not giving 13 seconds away. They're going to the Super Bowl. So in Kansas City. So it's like Buffalo is one of those teams that, like, if you don't play well, you'll get humiliated. And that's, that just shows you that they didn't play very well, responded, and came back and won. It's like I said, we talk about it every week, but they can win ugly, they can win pretty, they can win however you want to. And that they're going to be, I'm looking forward to this weekend.
Should be interesting. That should be a very interesting game. I got to tell you though, Rob, I'm very surprised the Eagles are underdogs. I would take the Eagles in 2.5 points against the 49ers. That's kind of ridiculous.
I just like to know, like, do they sit back in like some lab and be like, let's it's Monday, let's make them 2.5 point underdogs. You know what I mean?
I don't know. I guess so. Either they know something and the Niners are going to win, and they're trying to get everyone like me in Philadelphia to
just riled up.
disrespect, and have the Eagles when Vegas already knows that they're going to lose, or whatever algorithm they use out there in the desert is just
you can
in love with the Niners.
Is Lane Johnson? I can see it. Is this Lane Johnson? I mean, maybe he's injured.
Urgency-wise, the Niners need that game. The Eagles don't. The Niners have to have this game, in my opinion.
Buffalo had the game yesterday too, and they didn't get it.
Why do the Niners need it that much more than the Eagles? I don't get it.
I think to prove to them that to put all the whining away and be like, see,
right, okay,
we can beat you at home with when our guy's not, when his elbow's not like hanging on by a piece of dental floss, and I don't have to go to my third string quarterback or fourth string quarterback. We can win. You know what I mean? But like standings wise, it still doesn't. Yeah, the head-to-head matters, but like I said, I don't see. This is the only game, maybe the Dallas game in Dallas, the Eagles could lose. I mean, granted, they could lose a couple more, but you just don't see it. I mean, their schedule's so soft at the end of it with you just said the Giants twice and the Cardinals, like,
right,
like unless they just don't get off the plane, they're gonna win those games. So.
Dallas, you never know. I mean, the Cardinals did beat the Cowboys. Just unbelievable.
But that's a Cowboy thing. That's a Cowboy thing to do.
Yeah,
that is a typical Dallas thing to do, right? Just a team they're supposed to beat, and they get drubbed. And it's like, well, you don't see that from the Eagles. You say what you want. They might not look the way they want. They don't lose games. They don't lose those
games like that. That's. They never lose bad. They never lose to bad teams like that. They're always good at taking care of business when they have to take care of business. I just don't. It's just mind-boggling that they haven't played a complete game yet this year.
And they're 10-1.
They win every week. I'm just wondering because logic tells you the way that they've been doing it that one of these weeks they're going to get tripped up. And you just wonder if it's going to be in the playoffs.
What's 49ers are in second in that conference?
No, I think. Right? Well, now maybe they.
Detroit lost on Thanksgiving.
Oh, right. So Detroit has 3 losses, right?
Yeah.
So Niners and Lions are both 8-3. They the Niners do have the 2 seed, I guess, based on.
Yeah. So you have a 2-game cushion.
Tiebreakers. Yeah, but I want it to be 3. I don't want to lose this game to the Niners because I think that Dallas game, I think they are going to beat the Niners because we talked about it a couple weeks ago with the revenge factor. The Niners are so consumed with hatred. The Eagles are living so rent-free in their head because they have it in their mind that this fallacy that they got cheated out of the NFC Championship game last year because they didn't block any of the Eagles pass rushers and got both their quarterbacks killed, that it's going to work against them. And the fact that the Eagles are underdogs, that's going to get to the locker room. That's going to get to Nick Sirianni. They may say they're not using it as motivation, but they are using it as motivation. I fully guarantee
I'm sure they will.
I just don't see how that –
I have a win for the Eagles this Sunday. Then you're going down to Dallas on Sunday Night Football, and Dallas hasn't trailed in a football game at home yet this season. So that's going to be a hard game. And the Lane Johnson injury – he's kind of a surprise inactive yesterday. Woke up with a groin injury, got an MRI, didn't play yesterday. The Eagles still won.
He said he said he popped it on Friday.
Whatever happened,
Yeah,
they're going
that's what
to need
that's what
him.
they're saying.
Like if they're not going to win both these games if Lane Johnson doesn't play in either of them. They're going to get a split. God forbid they go 0-2 because that would be.
I know. To be 10-3 would be so hurtful. We
Doug. We want the Eagles. The Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia is a tremendous home field advantage, and I am by no means want to go to Dallas for an NFC Championship game because they are a phenomenal home team. They can't win
really
outside
think
of
Dallas
Big D.
Going to lose? You really think Dallas is not going to lose another game?
Well, they have it because they have. I don't think they've played Buffalo yet. I know they haven't played Miami yet.
They come down here in December, Christmas Eve.
Well,
they come
we
down
took
here.
care of your bills. We took care of your bills yesterday.
I'm not concerned about that. I have the utmost confidence that we will curb that. We will beat Dallas at home.
In Miami.
I don't see us losing a game at home this year.
Games in Miami. It's in Miami, right?
We're completely.
Now you're a much better home team than you are.
Completely different at home.
Yeah, that's for sure. Especially
they run it's like watching the old school Techno Bowl with Bo Jackson at home. It's ridiculous. They can't. The offense is not. It's almost unstoppable. It's crazy. Like I can't remember the last time I watched a game where we're 3rd and 12 and I'm like, we got it. It's not a problem. We're all right. We're all right. Like we're good at home. We're good. And if you don't get it, you're like, okay, we're 4th and 4. Just go for it. We'll get it anyways. But on the road, you're like, oh boy, like we're just not very good on the road. But I will say this: like everybody gives people they give the Dolphins and we're talking about the Eagles. They're winning games they're supposed to win. Like the Dolphins' MO right now is, well, they're undefeated against under 500 teams, but they lose to. You know how many times the Yankees did that for decades? Like if you win the games you're supposed to win, and you win a couple of the ones you're maybe not supposed to, you're going to end up where you want to be in the playoffs. Period. End of story. It's when you lose games to, like when you're the Cowboys, you lose games to the Cardinals. Those linger. You're like, damn, dude. Like, you look back and go. You don't look back and go, damn, dude. We got beat in Philly. Like you don't look back at that, right? You look back at like if you dump one against the Jets, or if you dump one against Tennessee. Right? You don't those are hurtful because you play them 10 times, you beat them 9 times. So that's not for years the Dolphins' MO was we'd beat teams we shouldn't beat and we'd get beat by 2 or 3 teams we shouldn't have. So that there's something to be said about that. They're taking care of business. They learn how to win. And the Eagles again don't need any more motivation. I don't need the betting line. They just be you. That's all you got to do. Just all we got is all we need. That's all that matters to them. To me, it's like they're on a mission and they're professionals and they understand that they were within one drive away from winning the Super Bowl. And it's like they're all on a mission and I don't see them really being that because you can't go 10-1 in the NFL if you're raising and lowering your level of enthusiasm for your opponent. Yes, of course, the Monday night games are huge. The Sunday night games are huge. The in-division rivals are huge. But teams that get up really high for, let's say, a Eagles-Niners game are the teams that also don't get off the bus against the Broncos and let one slip. Does that make sense?
Yes.
They're going to be hyped at home, of course. But, just because of last year and all the stuff being said, you can get up. Obviously, you get up, but those guys get up for every game. They realize. I look at it this way: when teams are good, you set a standard of your own. You hold yourself to the standard you've created for your own team. They've created a standard of how they do things, and they want to live up to that. The opponent has no face, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
And that's where I feel the Eagles are.
Let's get into some MVP. Jalen Hurts, the MVP of the NFL. He's the he's the favorite on the sports books. He has been since the Chiefs game. I thought that run yesterday puts him in the total driver's seat to win that award, even though I said I didn't care about it earlier in the show. Other people do. I think Jalen Hurts is the MVP, the most valuable player to any team in the league.
How many picks did he throw yesterday?
Did he have a pick? I don't think he had a pick.
I don't remember him having a pick.
I don't think he
I
turned
thought
the
he
ball
turned it
over.
over twice yesterday.
They fumbled a handoff exchange.
Okay, I thought there must have I saw two turnovers or 2 fumbles. They gave
But
him
like, I don't know why this football team puts like DeAndre Swift on the bench at any point during the game, but they do. And like Jalen was trying to hand the ball off to Kenny Gainwell, the Eagles' backup running back, and Kenny Gainwell wasn't paying attention, wasn't ready, wasn't looking. So Jalen stuffed it in Kenny Gainwell's stomach, and it resulted in a fumble.
We will see. I guess moving forward, like MVPs aren't won in November; they're won in like late December, the next month. We'll see. I mean, you'll see what if the voters what they value. Do they value fantasy football numbers, or do they value the fact that you're the quarterback of a 14-2 or 14-3 number 1 seed in the NFC? Right. That's pretty much
Jalen did have an interception yesterday. I don't recall it. I was at
but
the
I mean
game
you don't remember you don't remember his turnovers. They're not that which is a wonderful thing, right? Because they're not catastrophic. You know what I mean? Like that's again, it goes back to like, is he going to put up the best numbers? No, but that's not what this award's about. It's like if you remove this person from your squad, how do you do? And that pretty much sums it up, right? I mean, I think he embodies like the whole team. Like he's the glue to that whole entire group, in my opinion.
Brad, are you going to? What do you have on the MVP? Are you going to make up nonsense
Right now?
about
It's that's tough to say. I'm going right now. I like Purdy, but we'll see if Purdy can show up against the Eagles on that, then he gets it. If not, it's going to be between. Right now, if you're looking at the NFC, it's a 3-horse race. Okay, between Purdy, Hurts, and Prescott, just the way they're all playing. And then you've got Mahomes, of course, who's the best quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, you can't discount. As much as I hate the Cowboys, you can't discount Dak's numbers.
No, his numbers are phenomenal.
His numbers are great, but that
they haven't. But you know what everybody who keeps saying that they haven't beaten anybody, they're right. They really haven't.
I just feel like his 4 interception game's coming, where he falls off the minute.
Listen, they lost 42-10 to the 49ers. I mean,
right.
Let's not forget that. That is completely unacceptable. You'd never see the Eagles do that. Not in a million years would they ever lose 42-10 to anybody.
I would rather see my guy just lay an egg. Like if I'm a Cowboys fan, like, okay, you go out to San Francisco, you get waxed. Bury the tape, remember it. If you see him again, learn something. The game in Philly, it just totally explains why Dak Prescott is not a big-time player and not an MVP candidate.
And why Dallas won't win a Super Bowl.
Probably.
Super Bowl. Great point by Doug. Like, 2-point conversion, all you have to do is make a mini jump cut and extend your arm, and you need a field goal on the final drive. He steps out of bounds because he's scared to get hit. And then on the final drive...
He just has no field presence. That's part of the problem.
And then on the final drive, what was it? Sack, delay a game, or delay a game, sack?
You just know with the combination.
No, they had 2 delay games in a row.
Right. The combination of Dak and Mike McCarthy, you have at least 2 mismanaged timeouts and 3 delay games at the end of the half or at the end of the game. They're going to kill him.
Yep.
I mean, it's like a horror movie. You know the outcome. You know the guys in the bushes, and you walk right over there, and you just get whacked by a machete. It's like you see it coming, and you walk into it anyways. And that's exactly what Dallas is going to do until they prove wrong.
Ryan Swoop, when the Eagles show great runs and how good they can be at running the ball, they go right back to throwing the ball. Makes no sense. being consistent running the ball a little so frustrating? Are they saving the guys for the playoffs? I don't know what they're doing in terms of the run game. I mean, this is not Shane Steichen. This is Brian Johnson calling the plays, much to my dismay. I think Nick Sirianni should take it over because if I see one more bubble screen that loses 4 or 5 yards, I'm going to lose my mind. I don't understand why guys like Rashard Penny and Boston Scott and Kenny Gainwell are getting carries. Like DeAndre Swift should, unless he's tired or injured, like DeAndre Swift should never be out of the game.
Snaps. He can't have 35 rushes in the game and expect him to bounce back again and again and again and again and again.
I mean,
the season's too long. It's not a 14 season anymore.
I mean, you have the Niners and then Dallas the next 2 weeks. Like, I get the whole like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But like, I'm also a firm believer in
touches in the first half for DeAndre Swift. He had 2 or 3 touches in the whole first half, and he still ended the game with 17 carries for 82 yards. Like,
one thing leads to another. Like, you have to do one to get the other. I do understand that. Like, no, but I just feel like until the other team adjusts, why change?
I agree with you. And once I'm not gonna sit here and fire Brian Johnson when they're 10-1. I don't like the guy. And when they do lose their next game, you might see me get a little animated about Brian Johnson, especially if it's his fault. If I deem it to be his fault.
You guys crack me up.
Josh Allen isn't the problem. Josh Allen is 100% the problem.
No, it's not.
No, he's not.
Josh Allen is not the problem.
Josh Allen is not.
He has no running back and no offensive line and no offensive coordinator. What they do is here, Josh. Here's Stephon Diggs. You guys figure it out. I mean,
pretty much.
That's pretty much. I mean, they literally played backyard
and every once in a while they'll throw the ball to Gabriel Davis. That's kind of that's their offense.
It's been that way for years, and it worked for a while. But it's like you have to. I mean, like last year was a unreal. Like be 3rd and 4. And he threw 2 passes. Now he's running, and he runs. He was the leading rusher for God knows how many games. It's like, what else do you want this guy to do? Do you want him to punt and kick field goals too? Like, I don't understand it. I just don't. They ask him to do too much. And again, no offense, but when you have Ken Dorsey as your offensive coordinator, a guy who couldn't hack it at that level to begin with, what the hell is Ken Dorsey, which I know he got fired, but what the hell is Ken Dorsey going to tell Josh Allen? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
anything.
No.
I mean, he had Brian Dable, don't forget.
Yeah, and then when he left, right, they haven't been good since, legit since he's left.
Oh, that's absolutely true.
So, and again, you can't clone a guy, but okay, there's something to be said about, I'm watching the Vic Fangio defensive coordinator in Miami, now that except the Jalen Phillips Achilles injury that just blew up in our face. But you're seeing, watching the Dolphins defense now, I can see, and it's happened over years, but watching this guy and this defense has gotten better, more creative, and they shut people down now, and it takes a while. But it doesn't matter how good the player is, if you keep switching, changing coordinators, it takes a while for it to get. But again, you have a guy who can make every throw. I think every time they need to get somebody in there and be like, look, I know you can do this, but in the long run, we're going to be more successful if we can get 80% of you, and let's make sure the other guys are doing what we have to be more balanced. We can't be so predictable. Let's, when we need you to be the gunslinger, it's still in there, but we don't need it from the first snap of the game.
No, and they need to be able to run the ball. At
some point,
and
even if it's
and it can't always be him running the ball.
Correct. He's one hit. You're jeopardizing the guy from getting murdered.
I mean, he weighs 240, 250 pounds.
And he can run.
Yeah, and he can run, but how many times do you go to that well?
I was surprised he made it through last year. I really was. Because if you take that guy out of the game, it's over. That wouldn't be a bad
Well, he was playing
that right there, that comment right there.
He was playing with a torn elbow. That's what was crazy last year. I mean, he tore something in his elbow. Yeah, that's a good one. Frank Reich's
that comment right there is outstanding.
First off, that's embarrassing that he got fired.
Correct. What did you expect?
That's totally. You traded all your draft picks for Bryce Young, who I even told you that was not the right pick. C.J. Stroud should have been the pick. So, and it's rumored that Frank Reich, the scouts, and all the other coaches wanted C.J. Stroud, and Bryce Young was forced upon Frank Reich and the scouts and the coaching staff by ownership. So now ownership doesn't like the direction. When they force the direction on Frank Reich and they're going to fire him 11 games into his first season, that's embarrassing. That means you're a bad
Miami
franchise.
Dolphins thing to do. That right there. It's a very Miami Dolphin of the past.
Yeah, that's a Jets thing to do.
We would take people and then just be like, well, we didn't want them. And that's terrible. You're right. What did you expect? You had the first pick for a reason, because you're god awful. And one, small, marginal Alabama. I just don't. That's my point. I know these guys come from Alabama. I understand. Tua is one of them, but it's like they're. I hate to say it, but they're average NFL quarterbacks.
Look at Mac Jones in New England. He stinks.
They're used to throwing wide open. Like, they're throwing at guys that are like, yeah. When you have the three wideouts that Tua and Jalen Hurts had at Bama, like, there's no one covering those three guys. Like,
Mac Jones is so bad. It's
awful.
The Giants yesterday didn't have Dexter Lawrence. Okay, they're not that their defense is that good to begin with, but he is by far their best defensive player. They didn't even have him yesterday, and Mac Jones was still awful. He's throwing the ball behind it. I know the weather wasn't good. I get that, but how come Tommy DeVito was there, who, by the way, wasn't even drafted? How come he looks better than Mac Jones?
And I say that with all due respect, because Tua's putting up MVP numbers, but I mean that in the fact that, like, Tua to me is an exception to the rule. You've had to change the entire system and the entire offense to work around his skill set, and you have an Olympic track team as your offense.
But he's done. But you know what they've done? But they did the right thing.
Correct. But I'm just saying, like, you can't just like, oh wow, Bryce Young was is quarterback of Alabama. Like, so, like, it doesn't.
Yeah, that's
like, again, like when you have to, like, to me, a clear cut when you trade away draft picks, there is a clear cut number one. There's like a Peyton Manning staring you in the face.
Trevor Lawrence,
right? Trevor Lawrence was like, okay, you're who's picked two, because we all know who's going one. Bryce Young wasn't a bona fide number one overall pick. Like, he's not generational quarterback. Like,
I mean, it'd be one thing if you didn't give up. Like, they give up players and picks
for that.
Like, good player, DJ Moore playing right now. He's a good receiver.
Yeah, he's a very good receiver.
And then what happens when you have non-sport people making sports decisions? You pay these people. You pay you hire a guy to be a head coach. You hire scouts to evaluate talent, and then at the end of the day, you go against them because you want this guy.
And that's how Bryce Young gets picked first overall, and that's how Zach Wilson gets picked, whatever, second or third overall.
Correct.
Yeah, somebody insisted on having Zach Wilson. Don't know who on the Jets. I don't know who you blame with the Jets for that one, but
well, it was before Joe. That was the year before Joe Douglas, right? I believe that's the case.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
that was 1 year before. No. Wait a minute. That was Joe Douglas.
Was it? Maybe he's not as smart as I.
That was Joe. Joe Douglas messed that up. I mean, he listen. He's done a great job putting together the defense, but he's done a horrible job with the offensive line and an even worse job with the quarterbacks. And then they go and they trade for a 39-year-old quarterback and don't have a reliable backup. I mean that made no sense.
Until like the Jets and the Giants are in the same boat until they get an offensive line. And I think that speaks for like every team that's struggling in the NFL, their offensive line is in question. It really doesn't matter who you get back there. I mean, that's the reality of it. I mean, if you don't get guys that can at least slow down the opposition, you're in trouble.
Yeah, I'm shocked about how bad New England's offensive line has gotten.
Correct.
When did that happen? I mean, that seems like it just happened overnight.
Yeah, I agree.
Ryan Swoop 10-1 because it's the regular season. They're getting away with horrible play calling and defense. First off, they're not getting away with horrible defense. The Eagles' defense, albeit they've had some troubles in the secondary, those are behind them. Their nickel corner's back.
They gave up 500. They gave up 500 yards yesterday in the rain.
I thought Josh Allen was good. Now he's not good.
I'm just saying your defense gave up 500 yards yesterday.
Well, according to you two, they played an elite quarterback. So why should I be worried about that when they won?
Well, they still gave up 500 yards.
I don't care.
You want to talk about
their
defense? You want to talk about their defensive problems are behind them. They're not behind them.
I don't care about the yards.
Well, 34 points is a lot of points too.
But it happens sometimes. And again, in the rain, it's like the snow. Everybody thinks, the weather's gonna be bad. Well, guys are slipping. Well, yeah, the offensive guy knows where he's going. The defensive guy doesn't. So, like, to me, their points have a chance, unless it's like a mud ball or a mud bowl and it's ridiculously bad. Like if there's one team that can go in bad weather, it's the Bills. They're used to playing in that crap. That's all they get in Buffalo. You don't get.
They get cold weather, but Doug, they haven't played well. They haven't really played well in the snow. I mean, last year in the snow, they got smoked by the Bengals.
Yeah, but my point is, like, those guys were used to it. There's like.
Well, yeah, they're used to it, but that doesn't mean they're going to play. They're going to play well. I mean, listen, it's hard to catch the ball in the rain. That's.
I agree with that, but at the same token, it's also like both teams had a plan. And they both put up points. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah, they did.
It's hard to stop guys as a defense in rain and freaking because you're slipping all over the place. So, like, your footing's bad, and that's seen it for.
Which is what made that kick so impressive. By the way,
go back to that. Like,
I still can't believe the guy made a 60-yard field goal in that weather because
he kicked it. He damn near kicked it in the net. Like it was good from another 5-7 yards.
Well, that guy did that to the Giants. I think he kicked a 63-yarder against the Giants one year.
That was in week 3, I think it was. It was late September. It was really hot.
It was a nice day.
It was a nice day. Like that was Jake the Make is what we're calling him at work.
That's still a
Jake the Make.
That's still a 63-yard kick, though.
He's Legatron. He's Jake the Make. He's a legend. That's some. He's
Legatron.
He's unbelievable. He never really misses.
No, he doesn't.
He's a phenomenal kicker. I mean, that's some Vinatieri shit yesterday in that.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
And they needed it really, really bad because they needed to tie the football game.
That wasn't your end of the half. Let's give it a try at 60.
That game was on the line.
Right.
And Buffalo even called the timeout to try to ice him, which
don't get that.
Obviously didn't work.
Like, I don't get the whole. There's nothing that drives me more crazy than teams that ice the kicker. Okay, first of all,
the Giants did it yesterday to the New England kicker.
If you think you think that timeout really matters to the guy kicking it, no. If you're worried about that, if you're that concerned about your kicker, he's not going to be an NFL kicker. Like, they're all off.
Well, the guy on New England was a rookie kicker.
Who cares?
No, I'm just saying, in Giant Stadium where the weather sucks, And he missed a 35-yard field goal yesterday.
Why don't you go the other way where you think you're going to call a timeout and don't do it?
That probably would work.
Correct.
Better than icing.
Right. Like the whole icing thing. It's like, oh, wait. He's getting ready to kick it. Timeout. Like, seriously? Come on.
Brad, remember we had that Raiders kicker on?
Yeah, Jeff Jagger.
Jeff Jagger. He was the kicker for.
He said it does ice the kick. He said it did. He said he missed. They were playing the Eagles, and the Eagles called a timeout at the end of the game, and he said it was like a 40 or 50-yard field goal, something like that, and he missed the kick by like a half a mile.
Yeah, but ultimately, didn't he say that icing the kicker was like he just missed because he said it was his first time at the vet in a spot like that, and he choked and missed. But he said icing the kicker was stupid.
And I know they're gonna call timeout. Like after they know they're gonna you see him go over there and we snap it, I'm gonna shank the fuck out of it on purpose. So like, see, and then when the one is true, go right down the middle, be like, hey, you guys screwed up, you had a chance. Like. Go up there and just kick my center right in the butt. I'm like, see, you had a chance. I would have missed it.
See, Doug, but you see, Doug, that's why you have a championship ring.
It's just like I don't. Okay? I just don't get that. It's like
because you have the mental edge on everybody. When you as an athlete, you had a mental edge against.
Those guys have to. Those guys, they have their own practice field for God's sakes. All they do is kick. Like
I know.
It's like a closer. You have to be mentally. Just go into a place where not many people can ever understand to be a closer. Same thing with a kicker. You got to be able to man, whatever y'all do, I'm good. Like, could you imagine? I mean, if they break it down in the simplest form, you're the smallest guy on the field. You barely have shoulder pads on. And if you blow this, you have 54 of the biggest dudes on the planet that want to eat you for dinner. Like, you're talking about letting a city down? Like, we're just letting a 350-pound lineman down?
And 60,000 fans that are at the game.
Like, they're gonna,
along with a few million people who are watching.
It's like, could you imagine? Like, this guy walks around. He already probably walks around the locker room like, I don't belong here. And then you blow a kick, and you're like, hey, guys, we still going to dinner? Like, no, man, get out of my face, dude.
How do you think Scott Norwood felt?
No, I know. Like, I mean, just like, oh man, like the life they must live. Like you blow a kick to lose a game, like your own family doesn't even want to talk to you. Like,
you blow a kick to lose the Super Bowl.
Live with that.
Yeah, and it was wide right. It wasn't short. It was.
You have to say wide right.
Yeah,
you have to say wide right.
Wide right.
I've lost 6 national championships because of wide rights.
Oh, sorry.
It's painful. It's painful.
I forgot about your kicking team
painful.
Back in the day. Yeah.
Painful.
All right, let's take a quick break. Hear from our friends at Royal Billiards, and we'll get into some college football playoff scenarios on the other side. Sports Hounds will be back right after this.
Royal Billiard and Recreation, proudly celebrating 40 years and our new, bigger showroom.
Twice the size and twice the fun.
More pool tables by Olhausen. More dartboard sets, including custom reclaimed backboards. More bar and kitchen stools that can change a room.
And more bars, including pre-built and custom.
Hot tubs, skee ball, shuffleboard, outdoor,
and fun.
Royal Billiard and Recreation, your ultimate game room store. Now located on Bethlehem Pike in Colmar.
All right, there they are, Royal Billiards, premier game room associates located in Colmar, PA, 515 Bethlehem Pike, the premier game room store of the Delaware Valley, stocked with the very best in pool tables, accessories, shuffleboards, card tables, dart supplies, bars, and bar stools. Turn any ordinary room into an extraordinary gaming experience. Visit them at royalbilliards.com. Tell them A2D Radio sent you. Tell them the Sports Hound sent you. Doug, this is up your wheelhouse. Florida State taking on Louisville in the championship. Louisville coming off a loss. You have Texas and Oklahoma State in the Big 12. You have the SEC, which is really the game that's going to set everything up. Alabama and Georgia. Then you have Washington, Oregon in the Pac-12. If Georgia wins, this really isn't that difficult. But if Georgia loses, which I think that they might,
It's a mess. It's a mess.
It's a mess.
It started out even more of a mess. Like if you watch the Oklahoma State BYU game, BYU was up 24-6 in that game, and if BYU would have beat Oklahoma State, you had a Texas-Oklahoma rematch, which would have been really. I would have loved to have seen that. There's a chance that it goes awry, right? You have Bama beating Georgia. You have, Iowa's got no shot against Michigan. That's embarrassing. Let's just say Oregon.
Yeah, that's going to be a slaughter.
Oregon beats Washington, which I think is going to happen. Now what? And like Florida State beats Louisville, which Louisville is better than what they showed last weekend. They can hurt you, and that game kind of makes me a little nervous.
They're number 9 in the country. I mean, they're
not. They after the loss last weekend, will kill them, but they'll drop them back to 15 or 16. But
okay, yeah,
they're still. I mean, they're athletic. They have a lot to prove. Everybody's talking about Florida State. No one's talking about Louisville. But like again, you have a chance to where if Bama beats Georgia, all right, then you have the domino effect. We talked about this off the air. You have domino effect. Georgia. So you're gonna tell me that Georgia loses one game in the last 3 years and they're not in the top 4.
I think that if they lose, I don't think they're getting in.
I agree.
Which sounds weird. Whether the committee will follow through on that,
right?
If Bama beats Georgia,
you're right.
Like Michigan's in. Michigan's not. We all agree Michigan's not going to lose to Iowa. Iowa stinks. They can't score. Michigan's going to roll in that game. So they're in. I think Bama beats Georgia, so then Bama's in. If Texas beats Oklahoma State, they're in, because if you put Bama in, you can't not put Texas in. Alabama is their only loss is to Texas.
They're never going to not put an SEC school in the Final Four. We all know that. They want 2 of the 4 to be SEC teams. We all know that. Like that's where it gets screwed up.
They basically every year want to have 2 SEC teams and a Big Ten team, and then the best of the rest.
Right. And they want to, and like they're not gonna discount, they're not gonna, like the Pac-12 was their last year. They've been pumping them up all season, and the winner of that game gets in too. So I can see a scenario which would absolutely blow up the whole, like the thing that they have on their side, the committee on this side has on their side is the last year of 4 teams. So no matter what they do, they won't be held to the same accountability for next year when it's 12. Because there is a chance you see that, like Florida State could be
12 or 8. Is it 12 or 8 next year?
12, isn't it?
12?
Yeah, isn't it 12?
Is it 12? I thought it was 8.
I think it's 8.
Either way, whether it's 8 or 12, you're still going to have the same arguments at 4, 5, and 6, at 8, 9, 10, and 10, 11, 12, 13, right?
It's like the NCAA basketball tour.
Correct. There's always going to be someone left holding the
number 65. Number 65 is going to complain that they weren't 64.
Right. So, like, there's a legit chance that Florida State goes 13-0, and will be one of 2 undefeated teams, and they don't get a chance to go, and that's just reality. That's the reality of it.
You could thank TCU for that.
Well, I mean,
you really
forget Washington. People forget that Washington made it a couple years ago, and they didn't even get off the bus.
No.
Like that game was over when they kicked it off. So like
who they play Bama in that?
And they got absolutely throttled.
They got murdered.
It's
game.
Just like
I remember that.
Be careful what you wish for, because you've consistently had one bad team that didn't belong there. Right? So, Cincinnati, Washington, that was terrible. And like Michigan gets beat by TCU last year, which is embarrassing. And then they go get drubbed, and then Georgia puts 65 on them. And it's like, granted, like Georgia to me was the last 2 years was leap years better than everybody else. It was Georgia and then a big drop off. You don't have that drop off this year. You don't. And my argument is, I'm not saying this because I'm a homer. I'm saying this because why is it Washington can beat Washington State by 3, Bama beats a bad Auburn team on a miracle. Florida State goes into Florida and wins by 9, and it's like we just squeak by. Like we just squeaked by Florida.
Yeah, but that's
like,
I mean,
we won by more points than anybody else did.
You're talking all these games are rivalry games, and
I understand
you'd expect hard-fought, close games from all three of them. So that you shouldn't be bragging on. They shouldn't be ragging on Florida State.
But that's even before Jordan Travis got hurt. That's been the MO. Like they squeak by. They don't cover and they don't like. But like you look at Washington's last 3 or 4 wins, they haven't exactly like boat raced people. They haven't passed the eye test.
They may lose. They could lose.
Oh, they're going to lose this weekend. I guarantee it. Because I mean, don't forget that Oregon game. They missed a field goal. They missed a 40-yard field goal at the end of regulation. And
I mean, listen.
And if Lanning takes the points at halftime, there is no game.
That quarterback can beat anybody in the country when he's on.
Both of them can. And like goes with another thing, but like Bo Nix in his 7th year of eligibility. Like
I understand that, but then you can't take away the.
Oh no, you can't. But that's
Winky was the same way, right?
Well, Winky, but the difference is Winky left and came back. He wasn't there for worse. He wasn't in college for 7 years. Like these guys have been in the system for 7 years.
Yeah, no,
like, those are called doctors. Those aren't called like Heisman candidates. You know, but again, like this is going to get interesting because it's going to be at least there's amazing games this weekend. College football is getting what they want. They're getting nothing but marquee matchups the entire weekend, and it's all going to matter. And you know, predict the unpredictable because, and it's going to get set off right out Saturday at 4 when, you know, if Bama pulls this off and you're Texas is sitting there going, well, we beat Bama in Bama. We beat the SEC champ in their backyard.
Well, if Georgia wins, Florida State's going to get in.
If they win, they should.
Well, obviously, yeah. Florida State loses to Louisville. That's the end of that.
They're out. 100% they're out. We get that.
But if they, I think they're going to win.
If Georgia wins the SEC, we'll get in.
So then it's Georgia, Michigan, Pac-12, Florida State. You'll be the 4 seed.
Yeah,
we should be the 3 seed, considering we're undefeated, and the Pac-12 winner is going to have a loss, unless it's Washington. If Oregon wins, we'll have a loss.
But if Washington beats Oregon, then they're undefeated.
Oh yeah, if Washington beats Oregon, then we'll be the 4 seed. Yeah,
and then I think you would get discounted to 4 because of your quarterback situation. So you would have to play.
And I argue that our backup is the equivalent to what Ohio State starts. That guy's garbage.
Kyle McCord, yeah, I mean,
terrible. It's embarrassing. It's about as bad as Penn State. Like I have qualms with Penn State. I have qualms with Ole Miss. And I have qualms with Tennessee. They're always the 3 most overrated schools in college football every year. They never win a big game. Even Ohio State. I know they've won a national championship recently, but like Ryan Day's 1-6 against ranked teams.
Yeah.
Like, but they're always preseason. Yeah, they play. Like, no offense, they play Indiana and Iowa, and like Iowa, they have the next touchdown they score on offense will be like their 3rd of the season. It's just like, come on, like stop it. Like Michigan, like they're like again, I enjoyed the game on Saturday, Michigan, Ohio State. I get the rivalry, but at the end of the day, it's like I'm sitting there going, if we have Jordan Travis, like I have absolutely I'd be more worried about losing to Louisville than I would be playing Ohio State or Michigan with Jordan Travis. They just don't stay. I'm sorry, they don't like. Every year, it's the same thing. It's just like Big Ten football is just so damn predictable and it's so top heavy. It's just 2 people, and
it's like that every year.
Every single year.
Well, that's
like the Pac-12 is like Oregon State overrated, boldly overrated. Like.
Oregon is the real thing, though.
Oh yeah, for sure. Washington and Oregon, great years. Oregon is a giant waiting to happen. Lanning knows what he's doing. don't forget they lost their offensive coordinator from the year before, who's now at Arizona State, who was at Florida State, and Willingham or Dillingham, and now they're still doing this. We'll see. It's like they're coming. They're not going anywhere. But it's going to be absolutely. This is something that you cannot predict. It's just going to be absolute chaos, which is what the committee probably wants. They say I'm sure behind closed doors they don't want it, but college football in general, this is going to be.
Oh, well, this is good for this. Weekends like this are good for the sport.
Oh, it's fun.
Yeah,
it's arguably the best. You can say this is probably the best weekend of college football outside of a playoff or a BCS national championship game you could ever possibly fathom. When's the last time you had, right, 4 play 6, 1 play 8, right? You just don't have this. Georgia, Bama in the SEC championship game, right? With Bama having a loss. Washington, Oregon, 4 versus 6. Even, Texas, 7 versus whatever.
20,
Oklahoma State's like 18.
20 something.
Which is usually what you usually get, right? You usually get Texas against Kansas State. It's like, seriously, come on. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you have significant, and if, it's the last year of a lot of things. Last year of the Pac-12. But the SEC is going to look completely different next year. So this is going to be, this is going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. I just, we'll see what they truly go by. Do you go by resume, eye test? At the end of the day, you have a 13-0 team sitting there. There's no way you can leave them out, as much as they're going to want to try. I don't care who's your quarterback. I mean,
they need to be more clear. The committee, like, do they want the 4 best teams or do they want the 4 best resumes?
They only use that one. They use it. That's what I've always gone back to. Even at the beginning at the start of this year, they say something that works for the team that they're talking about at this given moment, and then the same thing, the same concepts and things they're talking about with this team, they're not looking at with the team behind them or in front of them. It's like you can't have it both ways. If that's your criteria, then the one behind you, the statement you just made about team Y, is completely 180 of what you just said about team X. So, because of the 4 best teams, I give it to you. Like we're not probably one of the 4 best teams with Tate Rodemaker as our quarterback, our backup. But how do you derail that from the other NFL guys we got on our team with a solid defense and NFL stars all over the place? You can't just discount us after what we did. I mean, hell, we played the national championship game in 1998 with a 3rd-string quarterback and still almost won. The year Tennessee with T. Martin beat us in 98 in Arizona, we had our 3rd-string quarterback. If Winky doesn't get hurt that year, we beat them by 45, legitimately. Our defense scored 10 points that game. Legit. So it's like, I get it, but I'm curious to see. I almost like as what you just said. If Georgia wins, we're in, and we win.
I think so.
You think so, but like it's almost like as a college football fan, I would love to see this whole process blow up in their face and be like, okay, let's see what you do now. Like who do you leave out of this mess?
Well, I mean, you're Mr. Georgia this weekend, because I think if Georgia loses, you're not getting in.
But I also think though, I want to sit there and be like, okay, I want to see Bama win. And be like, okay, committee, you're going to tell what message are you sending to the rest of college football? You can win every game on your schedule, and you're not good enough to go play for the national championship.
So I was a big, you got to put the best 4 best resumes in the playoffs until last year. And I watched TCU get smoked by Georgia in the national championship. I think they pulled the Miami Dolphins on the Denver Broncos. I think Georgia hung 70 on them.
Mm-hmm.
So
that was a bad.
They just scored again.
So TCU was 4th, and then you got Bama sitting there at 5. Like, let's say they had to play a game a week before the playoff. winner gets in, loser goes home. Alabama versus TCU last year.
What's the
TCU
line?
TCU
favored by
not
11.
winning that game.
Bama's favored by 11.
TCU's not winning that game. And
Correct.
you're right. The fact that the TCU was even in the championship game, that's Michigan's fault because Michigan choked on their own vomit, which they do in pretty much
All the
every
time.
big spot.
All the time. So there's your 2 points of why, like, so TCU gets in and the committee, like, whew, right? They beat Michigan, right? So you're like, oh, at least they got in. Then they go get drubbed by Georgia. So now you're saying that you missed on not 1 but 2 of your actual. You just screwed 2 people basically because Michigan telling you at 12-0 didn't belong in there because TCU blew them up, and now you've got TCU got blown up by Georgia, and the world's sitting there crying, going, Bama gives Georgia a better game than what TCU did by far.
It can't even be argued. I mean, it was
There
yeah.
you go. So it's like now you got almost the same situation coming in the next year going, I still don't think no matter how bad our offense is, we don't get beat by we don't give up 65 points. I'm sorry.
No.
We don't get beat by 45 by anybody with a true freshman at quarterback. So, but like again, I always just love to see the committee sit there and tell them like, hey guys, like you talk about resume. What's on Michigan's resume?
Nothing.
They beat Ohio State at home by 6.
Then they beat Penn State.
Right, and Penn State stinks. They're terrible. They have a quarterback that they don't let them throw. They just and like I'm sorry, like they made a big deal about Michigan running the ball 9 straight times against Ohio State. I don't care how good you are at running the game. If you're a top 3 team in the country, no one should be able to do 9 straight things to you, the same thing over and over and over again. I'm sorry. Eventually, you got to stop it.
That's true.
And that's how I feel.
But you know what? They're going to do that until they stop it.
Correct.
So you can blame them for doing it.
Not at all. But that's my point. Like Ohio State was ranked 1 in the beginning of all this mess.
No,
and like you just got the ball ran down your throat 9 straight times. 9. Like that can't happen. So like your resume is they beat Ohio State, which okay, they're ranked 2 in the country, but Ohio State claims to have this, and that's another thing too. They claim to be the Notre Dame win was so great, and they discount the Florida State win at LSU, and it's like, well, you're saying that Notre Dame was a top 10 team, but yet you're telling me that we beat LSU, who's now 14. They've lost.
Louisville beat Notre Dame.
Correct. So it's like that's
now,
my point.
Like that's a great win for even though Louisville lost last week. Like, okay, common opponents.
That goes back to what I said earlier about like the committee will say something like, "Well, it's what they're ranked at the time of they play them." Like, okay, so LSU was 5 when we beat them, and we drubbed them.
And then preseason polls don't matter. It's
crazy.
Like
it's just they have it's like they're allowed to do whatever they want to, and make any argument they want to fit their narrative, and that's just reality.
The NCAA makes 0 sense.
It does. It just until. I mean, there is no right or wrong. We're going to have this same argument next year when they expand the playoffs. The first team that doesn't get in is going to complain.
But if Georgia loses to Bama, like I'm putting an undefeated Florida State in over Georgia. Me.
Yeah, but I don't.
Will that happen in a billion years? I don't think so. And then you can blame TCU for that.
I think if Georgia beats Alabama, then Florida State's in.
Yes.
That's what you.
I would agree with that.
You know, and Oregon will probably beat. And then you don't have to worry about whether or not Oregon beats Washington.
Okay, but if
this all gets turned on,
that's the other.
Bama beats Georgia. If Bama beats Georgia, this whole thing gets blown up.
1 loss Georgia, 1 loss Oregon, undefeated Florida State. Who gets in?
Exactly.
Because if Bama wins,
say Bama beats Georgia by a last-second field goal in the SEC championship game.
Yeah.
Now you're gonna put 3 1-loss teams in the Final Four, and leave 1 undefeated team out. That's reality. Because if Bama beats Georgia on a last-second field goal, you're putting Bama in as an SEC champ. You're not pushing Georgia out of the top 4. That's 2.
And if Bama's in, Texas has got to be in.
And Texas is in. So, and then you're only undefeated Michigan.
They had a horrible loss, Texas.
They beat Bama head-to-head.
Oklahoma's a horrible loss. Oklahoma's not a horrible loss. They should have won.
Yeah,
they were favored to win,
second.
but that's not a horrible loss.
They should. But Oklahoma has no defense.
Nobody plays defense outside of the SEC in college football.
Oklahoma scored
doesn't happen
with 30 seconds left to beat them. So that's where so you're going to tell me that now. So now you're telling me that the Pac-12 winner and an undefeated team isn't in the Final Four. When you've been raving about the Pac-12 winner.
Could they possibly? I'm working under the assumption that Texas is going to be in if Bama's in, but is that maybe not the case?
They will. It's possible. It's possible. I mean, but then again, you're just that would be it. It would make no sense at all to where it makes total sense because now you have a team that beat the SEC champ at their place, don't get in, and then you have a 13-0 conference champion that's sitting on the outside looking in.
And a 1-loss two-time defending national champion, and a what would it be? A 1-loss Oregon?
It just goes back to like they talk about Florida State having to have style points. How come the SEC never has to have style points? And when they go into a shitty Auburn team, and Auburn pretty much gags up the game with muffing a punt and then giving up basically a Hail Mary with an idiot just let them go, like that's enough. Like that was enough to beat it's a rivalry game. What the hell is Florida State? You know what I'm saying? It's like we won by 9.
Tell you what, those Florida, that triangle, Miami, Florida State, Florida.
They have some crazy games.
Those are fun games because all those guys they've been battling in showcase games in high school and then since Pee-wees.
Since Pop Warner Bowl. Since they were 5 and 6.
Those are a lot of fun.
They are, but they don't get the credit. They don't get the credit that like Auburn, Alabama does. I get the tradition. I get it. Trust me, I'm the one that's screaming rivalry games matter. And like you can throw records out the window, but you can't have it both ways and say we squeaked by with a 9-point victory on the road in the swamp in an SEC environment and won by 9, and we just squeaked by, but yet it took a Hail Mary and 2 miracles for Alabama to beat Auburn, who stinks.
And then they almost lost to South Florida as well.
Correct. And it's like, well, which narrative do you want to pull? But I know I get it. They're SEC, and the SEC is the best ever. Well, the SEC has been, but not this year.
I agree with that. I do agree with that.
Not this year. Even Georgia's resume isn't that great. Who'd they beat?
Ole Miss, who you talk about,
Ole
never
Miss
wins.
the most
Tennessee, who you
Ole
talk
Miss
about.
should play Penn State every year in a bowl game. And it'd be 9-9, and they'd be like, 2 5th graders slapping each other for 4 quarters. Because like someone's got to score. It's like everybody raves about Lane Kiffin this and Lane Kiffin that. What big game has he won? Ever?
Nothing.
Correct. It's the same thing as Franklin and Penn State. Like they're so great. The whiteout. The one time they sent a Florida school there, Miami trounced their behind at Penn State.
That's the only way they have a chance to win a big game is if it's a whiteout night game. It's the only chance they have, really.
And then it has to be Wisconsin or freaking Illinois. They ain't gonna They're like this. Don't get me started. They're the most overrated.
Well, that's why the Big Ten. That's why the Big Ten went shopping and then got USC and UCLA to come. So now theoretically,
you got another 2 mediocre programs to the mix. Like they have a Heisman Trophy winner. They went 6-5. Think about that for a second.
I get it, but
now the conference, it doesn't play any defense at all.
Yeah, it was not a good look for USC this year.
No, but like I get they're raving the Pac-12 because the last year of its existence. I get it.
But Oregon and Washington are good football teams. They're just not USC.
100%. 100%. But like discounting Clemson at not being a good team because they lost 4 games. Let's not forget, like, if you go by preseason rankings and they don't just decide to cough the ball up inside the 5 9 times this year, they're not 7-4. They were a top 10 team to start the season. So
the committee doesn't look at it like that. That's
correct, but they only look at it when it fits their narrative. They're raving about the Ohio State win at Notre Dame when Notre Dame was a top 10 team. Notre Dame is not a top 10 team.
No, they're barely ranked. They lost to Louisville. They lost to Ohio State. And I think they've lost. They lost to someone else as well.
They haven't beat anybody good. That's the point I'm making.
Right.
But they use that as like, oh, it was a top 10 win. Well, so was the LSU Florida State game. LSU was ranked in the top 5 at the time. And LSU they lost 3 games. Well, they're still 14th in the country with probably the Heisman Trophy winner on it. So, anyway, I'm looking forward to complete chaos this weekend.
And it will be. Mm-hmm. It will be complete chaos. All right, last thing before we get out of here. Mr. Brad Ryer, Hockey Happy Hour, tomorrow night, 8 p.m., quarter point of the NHL season.
Already?
Your thoughts, Brad.
Well, right now, if we're looking at the local team, the Flyers, you're looking at a team that's pretty good. Are they going to make the playoffs? Maybe. If they can continue to play the way they've been playing, play good defensively. That was a huge win the other night for them out on the island. If they lose that game, then you have a 3-game losing streak, and then the 5-game winning streak is completely down the drain. But the fact that they were able to come back on the road in a tough environment, it's not easy playing in Long Island. I don't care what anybody says. That is not.
Don't they play in Brooklyn now? Don't they play at the Barclays Center?
No, they're back at the Nassau Coliseum again.
Okay.
So and it's not easy to win there. That is a tough place to play. So the fact that they were able to go back out there, I know it was a shootout, but still they got the W. They shut the Islanders out, and that was a huge win for them. So that puts them back in playoff position. You have to figure that the Capitals are an old team, and their inability to stay healthy is going to come back and bite them at some point. They just lost TJ Oshie. So that's a tough injury. And then, Nicholas Backstrom is gone. So I don't see Washington continuing to play the way they're playing. And, the Devils are starting to get healthy now. They'll obviously go up in the standings, but, the Flyers are going to have a chance. The question is, are 5 teams going to make it out of the Atlantic? If 5 teams make it out of the Atlantic, then the Flyers could be screwed. That's the way I look at it. And what you have to watch in the Atlantic is you got the Boston Bruins, who are an excellent hockey team. You've got the Detroit Red Wings, who, by the way, I think are going to make the playoffs this year. They're looking real good. Obviously, the Panthers are still good, and then you've got the Leafs and the Lightning. So I mean, out of those 5 teams, okay, the Flyers are going to have to beat out one of them to make the playoffs. I have no doubt that they can figure out a way to come in 4th place this year. That they could do. They're playing good defensively, and what good defense in the NHL travels. I think they got very, very tight against the Rangers on Friday. They came out and the Rangers just jumped all over them early and got 2 quick goals, and then the Flyers were never really in the game. But if they continue to go out there, they've shown a lot of resiliency. Every time they lose, they come back and they win. And that's something that playoff teams do. So we'll have to see what happens, but you got to like what you're seeing out of that team. I
love watching the Flyers. Great upstart team.
So
Brad, who did you pick? Who did you pick for the Stanley Cup at the beginning of the season?
I believe I picked my Rangers.
Would you like a do-over? Do you have a different opinion?
No, although tonight was certainly not their night. But after what they did to the Bruins on Saturday, and again, going into Philadelphia and beating a tough team on the road, that was a big win. They had a big win against Pittsburgh when they beat them 1-0 on the road. They've had a lot of real impressive wins lately. Tonight, as I said, notwithstanding, they had a real bad game tonight against Buffalo. They just were turning the puck over. I was watching a little bit of it while we had the show on. They turned the puck over, God knows how many times, and Buffalo made them pay for it. And it just looked like the Rangers were, still celebrating the fact that they just went in and beat Philly, Boston, and Pittsburgh back to back, and then play a bad team in Buffalo and get their brains beaten. That's the NHL, and that happens. So, but
right.
I don't need a.
You don't need a reprieve.
No,
sometimes I need reprieves halfway through the season on my
I think my boys are. I think my boys
I figured
are
I would give them a shot.
They're playing well. They did lose Kako tonight, and it looked bad. It looked like he may have broken his leg. I hate to speculate, but he got a skate caught underneath the boards and the ice, and like a little crack under the boards. Then he got checked, and it looked bad when he came off the ice. So I don't know what happened there, but that could be a bad one. But we'll see what happens. Doug, have you gotten a chance to watch the Panthers at all?
No, not yet.
Okay,
I'm in full Seminole mode.
Gotcha. They seem to be playing better now, and they've got all their defensemen back.
That's what I do. I do listen to a sports radio show in the morning here, so I always
they got everybody's back now. The fact that they're in third place, with their two top defensemen missing. Okay, and now they get them back. You have to sit there. You're going to say, "Oh shit," because I think they got Montour back, and who's the other? I can't remember the other one, but Montour. I've always liked Montour. I was kind of hoping the Rangers would get him when he was available, but the fact that they got those guys back, that bodes well for the Florida Panthers. So we'll have to see what happens there. But I think they're gonna. I was the only one on Hockey Happy Hour that picked them to make the playoffs. Everybody thought, oh well, without two defensemen, they have no chance. And I was like, nah, they're pretty darn good. Tampa Bay is old, and it usually takes them a while to get going, and they lost Vasilevsky for 4 months. So good for them. They're gonna be right there.
Alrighty. That'll do it for this edition of the Sports Hounds. Check out Brad tomorrow on the Hockey Happy Hour. I'm Rob Brinkman for Doug Minkiewicz. Thank you to our great sponsors at Baguio's Breads right there in Mount Laurel. Thank you to everyone who liked, commented, shared our show. Until next Monday, peace out, everybody.
Go Noles.